Think we're rolling. Let's talk today. My name is Adam Scott, head GM and designer of RPG Club. If you don't know what we are and what we do, the link's in the bio. We put really awesome players with really awesome GMs, and we build really cool games. But I want to talk today about a topic someone has asked me to discuss, which is the idea of how do you run games? Like, how do I run games as a GM in a way that's time effective and that's really fun? So I want to talk, and I want to show you. I'll show you the stuff I've used to run games. To hopefully make your life easier. So let's just get right into it, because I know your time is valuable, and I don't want to, just try to rack up algorithm time. So what I have seen from many GMs is I have seen that there are so many creative people in the TTRPG hobby, and many GMs are both storytellers and they're authors. So there's two parts to that. There's the facilitating a role-playing game element, and then there's the author side of writing and telling the story. And here's what I see a lot of. I see a lot of GMs and people who are trying to get into the GMing side of the hobby who really like crafting a specific story or a world, who are consider themselves writers, which is great. I think that's really cool. That is a separate skill from facilitating and running an actual tabletop role-playing game experience, which has a lot to do with engaging with the people at the table and knowing how to run a meeting and managing different personalities and in effective sense, keeping people on track. But with TTRPGs and D&D, we want to give people autonomy as well. It's not just like, let's tick the boxes and hope it all works out, and then we can leave, because we want to enjoy the process as it unfolds. So this is something I have done. Your mileage may vary. I hope it works. I want to show you something. This is the first one sheet that I stumbled into when I was running my first professional game. So I just wrote a bunch of the things I needed on a little piece of paper. And this is the actual piece of paper from 5 years ago now for my first paid game. And I put several key pieces of info on that sheet of paper that would keep me on track, because for me, I can only have one piece of paper in front of me. You might do it differently. You might be pulling up things, but I believe that pace creates immersion, the ability to move quickly from person to person and keep your eyes up and engage with the people at your table. That's, from my point of view, going to create a better, more engaging story. And what I see a lot of in the GMing space, the GMs who have a challenge, is they do this. And they look down and they're checking notes and where should we be? What should be happening? Ooh, I don't know this, so I need to take a look at it to figure out what really should be happening here, or double check this rule. Nobody cares. I mean that with all the compassion in the world. The players at your table don't care what this says. They don't know what it says. What they care about is what's next. So my whole perspective is anything that keeps me from looking down at this thing. That's why it's only one page. It's only one, so I can quickly reference it. Anything that allows me to look up and keep some schemes in my head allows me to keep players engaged. So how do you do that? Let me share my screen here. So to keep players engaged, there are a couple main ideas. So I prep a one sheet before each session, and it has key info to draw on that's going to allow me to stay focused. I preface my entire session with a pregame chat, and that chat is, we're all on the same team. So I want to set expectations. You can do it differently. It doesn't matter to me. It's up to you. This is what works for me. This is what has built our professional GMing space, but you can do it however you want to do it. We're all on the same team. We're working together to tell a story. So if someone is not on board with this, I just say my table is not for you. And I wish you the best, and I hope maybe I can find a game for you that works. And then we all need one reason to need the party. So everyone in the game needs to have a reason to need somebody else. Like, we're not just lone wolfing it here, Skyrim style. And I think that's setting these expectations are really important, because you unite the party with a shared goal. And when people have a shared goal and a need for one another, it allows them to support and focus on one another, and the dungeon master, game master, to present challenges to them that they actually want to solve together, because they have some connection with each other in the game. I let players know that we are living in a living world that reacts, which means if they make a choice, stuff's going to happen. It might not be the stuff they want to happen, but things will happen. They're welcome to engage with it, explore with it, challenge the world, but the world's going to move. And when they're sitting there thinking and processing, and what should we do? What should we go about? How should we do this? Other stuff's going to happen, so that I think of it as I can move the action to them as I start to tell the story if I need to. But I set it up with the context of the world's happening while you're there. It's not a board game where you roll and move and look. It's stuff happens. So it's important for me then if those are the expectations I set that allow people to work together and have a shared context, so that I have key information about what I know needs to happen to help motivate them and tell an awesome story. And then when they do things that are unexpected or cool, unique, that I haven't really, officially prepped for on my notes, that I can allow them to explore that. So here's what I do. I write down 3 to 4 key events. These are like things that have to happen, or key plot details that over the course of the adventure probably need to unfold in some way. They don't need to happen in the exact same way that I think in my head, or the person who gives the quest or the information might be a different person than I thought was going to be, or maybe instead of killing a character, they're captured and now they're getting information in some way instead of from a conversation, instead of pulling out a document, like whatever it is. Like there's some things that need to happen when you're telling a story to move the story forward. This is basic storytelling skills. If there's no story structure as a GM and you don't have key events that probably need to happen in the course of a section, what one is running from that point, from my point of view, is just an open world video game, which is fine, but you then present it in a different way to your players. Like, we're going to have abilities, we're here to level up and explore things. And to me, it's really hard to tell a story because there's a lack of cohesion on what actually has to happen to progress a plot. So players are looking for a story. They're there to work together to see something happen. And if I know in my head, okay, the town master has to give them the quest, or they have to get a quest from somebody in town. More broadly, they have to find the weapon that someone stole, but we don't know where it's going to come. Like, there's things that need to come into play at some point, but how it happens can vary. So, key idea. Incentives motivate players. And this is where I see GMs getting into a lot of trouble. Is they say, well, my players don't want to do things that I want them to do. Well, you can't force players to do things if you're going to give them freedom of choice. But as an economics teacher for 15 years, as a business owner, like, I can tell you, incentives drive behavior. Incentives drive action. So if players have identified a reason they need the party, and if players have agreed that they're there to tell a story and work together, and you've set that expectation, and then you also know a little bit about character backstories, what you can do strategically is seed the scene in an inn or in a town hall or in the dungeon with ideas that might catch a player's eye. And I look at it as putting out bait. And I don't mean like, haha, I'm going to trick you, but just little sprinklings of, what do you think about that? Maybe it's an old artifact that a player might, oh no, maybe I'm looking for a family heirloom. That artifact might connect to it. Or maybe they run into an NPC that reminds them of a long lost family member and they're trying to find somebody that they're connecting with. Like, the characters have motivations, which players usually care very deeply about. As a GM, if you strategically seed your scene and populate your scene with those hooks, you can draw players' attention to them and then whisk them into key ideas or key events. Or, oh, hey, they met this NPC who they thought was a long lost family member, but actually what they really have is a quest to give the player, but they might actually have some information about it, and you can about the family or whatever. And you can find a way to elaborate the story and also provide players some payoff. I try to provide elements of all 3 pillars of role-playing in each encounter or space that players are in. So there's combat, role-play, and exploration. Different players like different things. And so on my one sheet, I'll write down different little examples. So, okay, I've got 3 or 4 key events. I've got some examples of different types of interactions that could happen in certain scenes. Like, we're in the tavern, so there could be a fight, or maybe there's a treasure chest or some locked doors or some desks, or maybe there's all kinds of people to talk to, or maybe you're in the woods and you discover an elf that comes out of the woods, or maybe there's a fey creature that looks interesting and you want to learn more about it. Like, whatever it is, I like to present 3 potential options minimum for players. Now, with new players, I stick it at, there's 3 choices. Like, there's a group of people over here, there's somebody looking salty over there, and there's a desk over there that you see. With brand new players, because I find that brand new players really need that structure. But for more experienced players, when a scene is presented visually or verbally, having those 3 pillars is very helpful. And it gives players some sense of autonomy of, well, what can I do? But if you know in your head there's key information that needs to get delivered, and this is where the art of the suspension of disbelief can come in as a player. Whatever action they choose, sometimes you can just drop a key idea into whatever path they choose. Now, I don't do it all the time. Sometimes a treasure chest is just an empty treasure chest. But sometimes if something needs to happen and we've been playing for 2 hours and it's like, oh my gosh, it's driving me crazy. What's going to happen? Well, the NPC that walks in coincidentally has, a key to whatever they need. And then they go to the next door and they find the person they're trying to meet. So keeping in mind the objective as a GM is to tell a really effective story by giving players agency to take action in that story. If you have key events, 3 or 4 key events that need to happen, and you present a scene with different options for players to engage in, when necessary, you can drop in those ideas so it doesn't seem artificial, to allow players to naturally progress the story without you having to sit here and write down, well, they have to check out the treasure chest. They have to check out this thing. They have to check out that. I want to put this out here too. I'll come back to this here in a second, this document. But when I prep a story, I prep everything visually first. That's how I think. I think about each scene visually in my head. I don't write the details down because visually I can describe things I have seen. Like right now, I can describe to you what my backyard looks like. It has trees, there's a zip line, there's a trampoline in it. The trampoline has black and yellow on it, and the zip line has a blue seat on it because I know what it looks like in my mind. I don't need the notes. But if my scene descriptions are in my brain, I don't need the notes. I just need the sheet of paper to tell me, oh, what actually needs to happen is, they need to meet the person who's going to give them the document that sends them on the quest to kill the bad guy. So keeping that in my mind allows me to focus on the people. We're describing the scene, and in my head, okay, I can go, oh, well, let me tell you what the room looks like. Let me tell you what it smells like, because I've imaginatively already thought through it. It doesn't work for everybody. I'm a very visual person. That's the way my memory works, but that's what works for me in combination with the one sheet. I found that the more I practice it, the better I get at it. So what else do I do to prep to use this one sheet tool so that I can keep my eyes up to engage with people, to promote pace and engagement? Here's what else I do. So I try to keep in mind, remember this, pace creates immersion. Players want immersion. So it's not so much important as to what decision the players make, but that we as dungeon masters, game masters, give the players a chance to make a decision, because then the action can proceed. If players are not able to make decisions, it's not a role-playing game. It's just story time. And the dungeon master or game master is sitting there saying, well, here's what's happening. And players are like, that's great. That's when people get their phones out and they start feeling frustrated and boring. Key places. I make sure to include key places on my one sheet. So just like key ideas, maybe there's a key location or a key physical experience players need to have. Most likely it's going to be in one set spot, but maybe not always it's going to be in the same anticipated place. Like there's a house, but maybe it's on the west side of town instead of the east side of town, or whatever's in the house that they need to find is on the west side versus the east side. Like there's key different places. Or if a player asks you, hey, where is there a place to go shopping? You can say, oh, there's the apothecary magic weapon store, whatever the name of it is, and then you can direct them to it. I put that on my one sheet. I have the names of all the important places on my one sheet. So key shops, geographical locations, hideouts, town halls, places where players can go and do things. I always have 3 to 4 of those on my sheet, and they could be on different locations, or they can pop up as needed in the scene, because you're not AI, all right? You're not AI. You can't just have everything memorized, but you can understand player behavior and that players are seeking to do. So, hey, what are the questions players ask? Where can I shop? What can I fight? What can I steal? Who can I romance? Adult games only, if everybody's on board. But like, what are the things my character can do? Not like, hey, tell me your world and everything in it so that I know exactly what I'm supposed to do. The unfolding of the story and the mysteries of players like. Reinforcing this. Pace creates immersion. Immersion creates engaged players, and that keeps them wanting to know more and to come back. When we as GMs slow the pace, look, you can tell right now I'm slow my boring video. Don't we slow down? We don't give people a chance to actually do something, present them information and make choices, they'll become disengaged and they won't come back. And you'll wonder, why do my players never come back? And that's why, because you were too worried about telling your story instead of giving them consequent or choices so that they could do things. So here's how you always have 3 things in your back pocket, so that if the pace slows and you don't know what to do, this will give you time to think and time for them to do fun stuff. So I always have 3 random encounters. I call it my emergency kit. I always have a combat encounter. If you need time to think as a GM, have them fight something. Have them fight bandits. Have them fight, at lower levels, have them fight giant spiders. They love it. It's just players love getting into that. Players love to fight things. Have them fight things. It can very easily be a natural thing in the course of the story, or, oh, somebody in the tavern thought that you stole something from them. They're starting a fight. Oh my gosh, it's escalating. Roll initiative, whatever. You're going to get players more involved if they can fight. Travel, traps. Set a trap or a presumed or assumed trap. It will force players to slow down so they have to think it through while you have time to think about what's coming next. As a GM, to have success from my point of view, we need to be one step ahead of the players, if not two, in terms of like, all right, if they go down this pathway, I need to have X, Y, and Z ready to go mentally in the future. When we're GMs and we're just sitting here going, well, what are they going to do? Boy, this is exciting. We are falling into the experience of I'm just waiting for the story to unfold. You're the one who's setting the plot in the context of telling a story arc. It's basic English class, rising action, falling action. And mentally, if we're not 3 chess moves ahead of players saying, well, what's next? What could I put next? What's the thing that might need to happen next or could possibly happen next along these pathways in the story? Players could be left in a space where they're going, well, what's next? And you're like, well, I don't know. Why don't you look around the room and see what happens? And you're like, oh, I don't really know what needs to happen. Like there needs to be some context for you as a storyteller of what may need to happen so that you can accelerate the process of events unfolding. Good stories happen when stakes are increased and decisions have to be made and pace is maintained, at least from my point of view professionally. And we get paid money to do this. So to me, like we have to tell really good stories to keep people coming back. If we just tell sandbox adventures as GMs, certain players may want that kind of game. That's also a very video game style focused experience. And that to me is not enjoyable as someone who likes telling stories. That's just, hey, let me have my little character and I'll go around and see if I can level them up, which is cool. I'll go play World of Warcraft. Most players like World of Warcraft for that experience. The storytelling element is the mystery of what's going to happen, the agency in the process, and then engaging with other people. As a GM, you got to keep your eyes up and be able to focus on others. And so you can have the technique in your head of saying, what's coming next, what's coming next, what's coming next. And it's all on your one sheet. So that way, if you have to glance down, you go, oh yeah, they got to go find the red bandits or whatever they're called. I'll drop a red handkerchief in this scene. Maybe they'll find it. Like there needs to be little drops so that they take the bait, take the hooks, and they can learn more about the story they're doing. Also, I have a favorite NPC in every world that I go to. Let me share my screen again. Because then I can drop an NPC in for some dialogues or someone who can interact in some way. I always keep an NPC with the player party of some fashion. Why do I do this? Because it's my ability to verbally interact with the players through the NPC without breaking the fourth frame and maintaining pace. Sometimes y'all just got to tell the players something that they need to know that they maybe didn't figure out. And Bob and the Goblin can be like, oh, maybe if you just checked back in the hideout where I had all my gold and maps, we could figure it out. Like sometimes you just got to tell them some stuff. And if we break the fourth frame, we break pace. We're like, oh, guys, actually, you didn't check that room back there. Have you thought about checking it? And they're like, no, you're taking my agency. Screw you. I want adventure. That's how conflict happens. But if you use storytelling technique and leave your voice with the opportunity to interject through an NPC, you provide more options to get back into the pace where it's not like you're artificially just telling them what to do. I also include a random list of names related to kind of generally the species, race, whatever you want to call it, soundings, human names, orc names, drow names, whatever you want to call it, whatever type of area people are in. I have a random list of 10 male-ishy names, 10 female-ishy names. So maybe 10 more kind of harsher names and 10 more lighter flowing names. I don't know how you want to say it, but however you want to say it, 20 different varieties of names for different archetypes of characters to signal what that type of character may be in terms of their approach to the world. And I use fantasynamegenerators.com to do that. You can find names for everything on there, taverns, characters, regions, whatever. Go on there. This whole process, once I got good at it, took me maybe about 15 to 20 minutes to prep a 3-hour session, along with kind of conceptualizing my plot, which was like, where do we need to go? Who do we need to see? And that took maybe another 10 or 15 minutes. I also sometimes will consider using ChatGPT to generate character details, background, or pre-gen world context. If I'm in a pinch and I'm like, I just need something to flesh out to share with people. Because remember, players, from my point of view, by and large, if you had to pick one great facilitated experience where they're very active and engaged versus super unique world that they have never seen before, they will pick the great facilitated adventure that maybe is a little hackneyed. They'll pick that almost every single time. I ran Dragon of Ice Spire Peak professionally probably 30 times. And players kept coming back for it. Run to conclusion. Boom, it's amazing. Tons of sessions. Players love it. It's a simple story with a simple plot, but it's really easy to run and it's super accessible for players. And it's a story that gives them a lot of choice and allows GMs to put things in different places. That's why it's a great starter adventure for both GMs and players. But the players never said like, wow, this story seems kind of hackneyed. That's such an arrogant thing for GMs to think from my point of view of like, well, this is just not an original world. Guess what? Most players haven't played enough games to know that your world is original. Most players have very rarely played. So they just want to play an experience. And many people want to play classic fantasy. Statistics show us what most people want to play because that's what they see. And that's where the genre kind of unites in TTRPGs. Yes, there's alien, sci-fi, Star Wars, all that stuff. I love all that. But most people want to actually experience the game. They want to run through an adventure. They want to experience making decisions, and they could give a crap whether or not your world is super awesome and unique, because to them, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to get off my high horse. I apologize. That was a little preachy. Use the one sheet to your advantage. Write down key things. Think ahead of players. Think about how you can facilitate the experience of helping them make choices. I was a classroom teacher for 15 years. The most important part of any experience with people in the room is to get them engaged and have them making decisions. Same thing with GMing. When you make your players or give them the chance to make decisions, it gives them a chance to be directly involved. It gives you a chance to think, get ahead of them. Okay, where could they go? What could be happening next? What's important to set up the next process? That creates story momentum. That creates the immersion and positive experience that so many people are craving, but so few people know how to do because it's hard. It takes practice. And with all of this, I think when you start practicing it, you will have a much better chance to do it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Let me know how I can help you. As always, if you found this useful, please feel welcome to drop a like on it, share it with somebody, subscribe if you're interested. I take requests for videos in the comments. We run over 15,000 paid or 17,000 paid sessions. We have great, amazing pro GMs. We run all our games online. Take a look at the link in our bio if you want to jump in a game and play that character you've never played before. You can peruse all the games we have and see what works for your schedule. If you purchase a seat for a game, you'll get a link sent directly to you. Boom, you can be talking to your GM within a few minutes or less, building character concepts. Or you can just check out all the cool stuff we have to offer. Try something to do. So my name is Adam Scott for RPG Club. I really appreciate you being here, and I will see you again next time.